Today, we're going to be cutting through stage fakery and getting real about influence you can trust. Now, my guest today shares that too many gurus turn a microphone into a mirror, trauma dumping, status theater, and confidence without competence. All this is savvier than that. And people are tired of being played and emotionally manipulated. So my guest, Marianne Hickman, calls the mic a sacred place and shows why you must tell stories from scars, not from open wounds. We dig into the Utah bro archetype, which I wasn't familiar with before, and the Dunning-Kruger cliff, and how humor, and yes, open mics, even onstage mishaps can help you teach better and be remembered. So if you want to stand out without selling out, this one's your field guide, ethical authority, real charisma, and practical ways to keep audiences with you. When the slides die, the plans change, or the ego wants the wheel. So let's get into it. Welcome to Present Influence, Marianne Hickman. I have been so excited to talk to you and delighted to have you here live with me on the show. We're going live on Instagram as well, which is very exciting. Good to have you here today.
I'm so honored to be here. When we chatted before, I was just like, this guy has his stuff together. I'm all about your podcast too. The content of your podcast it's so valuable for speakers because I think a lot of us in the world of speaking, especially new and emerging speakers, there's a lot of things that feel elusive. How do we get booked on stages? How do we make money from this? And there's not a lot of people who are just willing to give the answers to this. There's a lot of paywalls and stuff and so forth. So I'm excited for what you're doing because it's just making it accessible to people whose messages you can get behind.
I really appreciate that. I also, my part of my goal, my hope as well, is that we're also equipping people with some of the skills and ability to grow and develop in how they deliver that as well and what they do on stage. Making the magic happen even more successfully, which is a wonderful thing to see. And I do hear from people sometimes that is what they get from the show and enjoy that. So I really appreciate that feedback.
Good.
Let me ask you, what this is maybe a tough question to kick off, but I think you can handle it.
Bring it.
What's maybe a position or an opinion you have about speaking or presenting that maybe it's a bit contrarian or different to what most other people tend to put out there?
Well, so I don't know if it's necessarily contrarian, but it's something that people don't talk about enough, I think. And it's, I was just writing my book yesterday. I'm like dictating my book in my car while I drive because I have no other time to write it.
That's a great way to do it.
Well, I hope so. So this came up yesterday. Same question ChatGPT asked me, and this is it. When we speak, the microphone is a sacred place. This microphone is a sacred place. My Instagram is a sacred place. The reason it's sacred is because we are receiving time from other people, which is the world's most valuable resource. They don't get it back. It's non-renewable, right? If we are going to use that time and tell stories that aren't healed yet, then that causes a huge problem. I'm a big advocate of telling stories from scars, not from open wounds. There's a huge danger in the public speaking world right now. And that danger is in trying to teach when it's really just trauma dumping at best. When it's trauma dumping at best, that doesn't help anybody. That should be done with a therapist, not with an audience. And at worst, it's manipulation. And that's the danger when people who do manipulate use the tools that we talk about. They use the art of persuasion. They use the art of psychology. We understand body language. We understand all this movement. And people who would manipulate and people that would just plain old scam people, they know these tools as well. And they use these tools and people, it's not a win-win. It's a win-lose or a lose-lose, oftentimes if you wait long enough. And that's the big danger is I hate the word authenticity because it's so overused, but I can't think of a better word for it. Yeah. You know, it's when you have genuine authenticity and a drive to help people, that is exceedingly rare. And it takes a lot of exposure as an audience member to detect when that's happening and when it's not happening.
I agree 100%. And I certainly have some thoughts on that myself, which I would love to share. But first of all, I'd like to ask you, what would be an example of that maybe you've seen? Now, you don't have to name any names, but you're welcome to. But give us an example of where you maybe have seen that somewhere recently.
Yeah, it's rampant. Now, I don't want to give Utah a bad name, but it is a fertile soil for what you and I have come to know and everybody has come to know is the influencer, right? There's a lot of YouTubers that come out of Utah. It's just, I don't know why. And it's not necessarily because of the geography, that just happens to be where we are. But there's this thing that's called the Utah Bro.
Okay.
And you'll know it when you see it. And if there's anyone that's watching live, I know you know what I'm talking about if you live in Utah, right? It's the Utah Bro that will put on the persona. They usually have like a mustache and no beard because BYU is really weird like that. They wear tight gym shorts, overly baggy shirts. They're huge and they're all about sales. And it's really sad because there can be a lot of good done by people who fit that demographic, but unfortunately that demographic can be easily stereotyped into people who will what is the word? Aggrandize?
Aggrandize?
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. Self-aggrandize. And you can tell when they get on stage and they're all about themselves. They're all about being the loudest one in the room. They're all about being the look at me, look at me, look at me instead of look at you. Look at you, look at you. And that's an easy way if you're calibrating and you're in the audience saying, oh, who am I sitting in front of right now? I believe there's something to learn no matter who you're sitting in front of. I will say that. And I also have to admit that I have been on the wrong side of this before. I took training and I watched that and I thought that's how it was supposed to be until one day I was walking through an event. And this is an event where I was speaking, I was emceeing. And this event, they hired a security team for the speakers. Now, was that necessary? I don't know. But it made me feel really cool and it made me feel really special. And I was walking through the lobby with this was insane, John. I felt like I was like the president or something. There was a security guy in front of me, one on each side, and the security guy behind me as if there was some like threat, which there wasn't. What that did was boosted my ego and also separated me from my audience. It separated me from the person that paid money to come get help. It separated me from the people who spent their last dime and their last time, maybe even got fired from their jobs. That's happened to come to an event where I was speaking. It just left me with a sick feeling. And I was just recently reading, you know, how we all just binge on Instagram. I was recently reading about Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And how he is the type of person, I hope I can meet him one day. He's the type of person who doesn't bring a media team with him. He's out there eating with the homeless on the street. He takes the subway to work. He donates many of his funds. Robin Williams was the same way. On every show he was on, he required that at least a certain percentage of the people who worked on the show be hired homeless people so they would have a job local in their area. We can all detect this. It's part of the gut feeling that we have. Trust your gut. This is one of my primary lessons I teach my kids. If your gut's saying, ask questions, look into, is this person on the stage, the same person they are on stage and the same person they are at home? And that's hard to tell sometimes. But if your scamometer is going off, just pay attention to it and be discerning for yourself without judgment if you can, but be discerning for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your questions or not. That's my soapbox on that. Thanks for taking my TED Talk.
I love your answer. And I agree. And one of the things that was very important to me with this show when I created it was wanting it to also be a platform for helping people to develop their critical thinking skills and to have healthier skepticism about things. And I was doing some videos last week about always asking questions and why it's been so important to me to always ask questions. And that attitude has taken me on quite some journeys in my life. But people don't seem to get too excited about seeing critical thinking skills. Oh yeah, that looks like fun, you know. So it's something that something that I like to inject into the show at various times. But a lot of time, I don't think it's one of the things that would necessarily draw people in, or a very, very, very niche audience for that. But I loved what you're saying about the scars and the open wounds, because I've seen that very much on stage. I've been working in an organization where someone was on stage, like leading the organization, being the head speaker for that, and unraveling emotionally on stage in front of 3,000 or more people. an absolute catastrophe, as you can imagine.
Been there, done that.
Right. So it's not nice to watch. It's not nice to be a part of. It can't be nice to experience. It must be terrifying when you know that you're losing your audience. And when, as far as credibility goes, if there's even a whiff that you're on a downward streak or heading down somewhere, you've already lost your audience. Your credibility is shot at that point. So I think this is a super important thing. But I've been talking a lot recently about the whole thing of performing or connecting. In fact, the episode I'm putting out tomorrow is mostly about that. And I had this experience last week doing open mic of getting up on stage and just taking the first few moments to connect with the audience. And I think that made the biggest difference for me over pretty much anyone else who went up on that stage that night, of just taking that moment. And I do see, especially with things like open mic, people just get up there, they want to perform, but they don't take the time to connect. But when you do, the audience is with you. They're on your side. They're along with you. And that means it is about them. It's about relationship. It's about connection. And gosh, yeah. So I can go on doing my little TED
I totally
talk,
agree with you.
Yeah. Because I know we've talked about a little bit already when we had a chat a while back about comedy and stand-up and open mics and stuff. And I know this is something that you do as well. And I feel that, and I think you agreed with this as well, that it's something that I almost think should be essential as part of speaking and presentation training, to get up on stage and do some comedy and try stand-up. But I'd love to know from you, why do you think that's essential?
Well, so Mr. Rogers taught me this, and I didn't know he was teaching me this because I was 6. But I used to watch, I remember I was 5 years old because I had a schedule as a 5-year-old. This is how OCD I am. I had a schedule as a 5-year-old. I remember it to this day. Now, this was 35 years ago, so I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm 40. Toss, right? Okay, so at 10 o'clock, every Monday through Friday, Sesame Street was on. And that was on for half an hour. And then at 10:30, I watched Mr. Rogers, and then I had lunch, and then I went to school. But 10:30 was my time. And I've done a little bit of research on Fred Rogers and what he did for children's television, and the fact that he stood up in front of Senate, the fact that he was in the military. He's a fascinating guy. If there was anyone that I could ever interview on my podcast, it'd be him and Robin Williams. It'd be a hoot. But I remember watching Fred Rogers, and he had this routine. And if you remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he would come home and he'd take off his suit and he'd put on his sweater and he'd play with the puppets, and he would just teach. We didn't know that he was teaching compassion. We didn't know that he was teaching leadership. We didn't know that he was teaching critical thinking. We didn't know that he was teaching problem-solving skills. We just knew that we were having fun. We knew that we were watching that little trolley come through and toot toot and just take over the experience. And Fred Rogers understood something. He said, we learn better when we're having fun. We just do. We learn better when we're having fun. And he said specifically that children learn better when we're having fun. And I don't know about you, but I have never stopped being a child. Just ask my husband. There's parts of me that are childish versus childlike. I understand there's a difference. I have both. But this concept of stand-up comedy, I was talking to my friend Sarah, who owns another podcast, and the way I used to teach public speaking exclusively had what I call the EKG of energy, where we start at the peak state and we go down and tell the dark parts of our story, and then we climb out of it. There's validity to that as well. But sad isn't the only emotion. Traumatic isn't the only emotion. Those can be leverageable parts of a story. And if we're going to look to one of the greatest actors of all times, we have to look no further than, once again, Robin Williams. Every movie that he made, that I have watched anyway, had been a yin and yang of both tragedy and comedy. If you take a look at Mrs. Doubtfire, it's hilarious, but it also deals with real family issues like blended families and divorce. If you take a look at What Dreams May Come, this one has to do with suicide, as does Dead Poets Society. So he also understood the duality of comedy and learning. And sometimes, this is not even a sometimes, this is all the time. You and I are in life school. None of us have ever done this day before. Sometimes when we pray for things, we receive the most beautiful blessings with the most hideous wrapping paper. And if we can get through the hideous wrapping paper, there is a blessing to be found in there. But it's crazy how some people stop at the wrapping paper and say, ew, this is gross. I don't want this. I did that when I had my divorce. I did that when I lost my job and said, ew, this is hideous wrapping paper. But if we just are willing to rip it off and go through the work, and sometimes there's paper cuts involved, of finding the gift inside, you know what comedy does is it speeds up the process. Laughing about it speeds up the process. I'm ashamed to admit this, but it is the truth. When I first started looking at comedy and public speaking, I didn't know how to do it. I was like, I think I used to be funny. I don't know if they were laughing at me. It doesn't matter, but I want to be funny again. So John, I literally Googled it. I said, how to be funny again. And I bought the first book that I found. And it says, do you talk funny? And I was like, sold, I'm buying it. And I'm so glad I did, because this breaks down the science. Here I am nerding out again. The science of comedy and what makes people laugh, because when we laugh, we retain more. We retain more information. We retain better information. It makes that wrapping paper not so ugly. And it shortens the duration of suffering. It just does. I saw a lady who on Instagram, her Instagram was all about her husband's fight with cancer. And it was terrible. It was tragic. And ultimately, I don't know if the right language is that he lost the fight, but he did pass away. And she came back on social media months later, maybe even a year later. And she came back with this reel that people who have dealt with loss will understand. I might have a macabre sense of humor. We'll see. But she came back with this reel. And in this reel, she put up a camera. You can see the inside of her house. She's walking through the front door, dressed all in black, holding an urn. And she said, that moment when you come back to social media after your husband passes away, and she's like, hey, hi, we're back. And she, in the caption, she nailed it. She said, you might not get my sense of humor, but this is how I cope with this. Right. This is how I'm dealing with this. And the comments, you know, my favorite comedy section in all the world is the comment section on Instagram. That's why I go to Instagram. The internet, you guys are killing it. You guys are so funny. And they were lighting it up, and we were laughing together. We were crying together. We're tipping drinks together. Who knows? But this is the joy that is in life. Now, there's a lot of inappropriate humor, and I know that we have varying degrees of acceptance for that. But I believe God when he said men are that they might have joy. I believe God when he says he has a sense of humor. And by golly, my days are just better when I'm looking for reasons to laugh.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely attitude to have. I think my experience has been, I think comedy, humor is a great way of reframing. And so much of coaching and development and transformation is about reframing ourselves on things. And if we can at least reframe ourselves to take life a bit less seriously sometimes, and to have a bit more fun with things or be more playful, I think we can make our life experience a lot more enjoyable, bearable, because goodness knows there's a lot of unpleasantness going on in the world right now. And if we can have people laugh and bring some joy into people's lives, and at the same time do that for ourselves as well, I think that alone has great value. But if you can add into that they're learning something, they're transforming or changing something about themselves, the value is priceless.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's think about the reels that you share the most. They're the ones that make you laugh. They're the ones that are funny. And I don't know about you, but dude, I have all of this pressure now to be funny. I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm like, I talk about comedy a lot. I don't know. Am I even funny? Do I even have an authority on this? I don't know. But I'm a student of it. I'm learning. And I just hope by the end of the day, or the end of the time that people have their attention spans, much shorter than a day, that they've smiled a little more. That's my goal. If we've done that, then we've won.
Yeah. I think you probably are funnier. I think we're all funny. We know if we're not. I think generally we know if we're not. We just don't have much of a sense of humor about stuff, and we don't generally find things that most people find. But I think there are definitely people who kind of flatline when it comes to a sense of humor, and don't really go to but I do think they're few and far between. So I think if you can find humor and if you can laugh at stuff and you can make your friends laugh sometimes, you could be funny. And I think that's something that I've picked up from talking to a lot of professional people, comedians, people who teach comedy as well. I think it's such an important skill to have on the stage. And one of the things that kind of leads us into is talking about this whole, when you are delivering something, a keynote, training, whatever it is, if you don't have some level of entertainment factor within that, it's going to be hard going for you and for everyone who's having, for everybody listening to you, for everyone involved. And so the entertainment factor is really important. And I'd love to get your take on what that can or should look like and how we can perhaps be a little more entertaining when we're on the platform.
Okay, so this is really fun because I first started inadvertently studying this when I was, I was probably 10 or 8 years old. In my church, we used to do sketches, skits. They called them road shows back in the day. But oh my gosh, it was like a theater portion of the church, and they would take some theme and then we'd have to create a sketch about it. And I will never forget this. It was in our church, we call them wards. It's basically a geographical boundary where everyone that's a member in that geographical boundary would go to church together. So it's a different ward, and they had this sketch about these time-traveling outhouse. I know, it's already funny, right? Time-traveling outhouse, and they all climbed in this outhouse like clowns in a clown car, and they went somewhere, and I don't remember where they went or what they were doing there, but I remember on the stage, they transported the outhouse to a new environment. So the lights went down, lots of stagehands moving things around, the lights go back up, the outhouse is there, but there's a new scene on the stage. And I think they're in the middle of some alien territory, maybe on Mars or something. The dudes climb out of the outhouse, and you have to imagine some guy in like I only can imagine it as a lumberjack hat and some big suspenders, lots of flannel. Hillbillies climb out of this outhouse, probably 18 of them. And as they climb out of the house, they start with the dialogue. And in the back of the scenery, the outhouse collapses, totally falls over. And the lead character, with the one with the lumberjack hat, illustrated the principle I'm about to share with you seamlessly, so perfectly. And the principle is that of yes and. This is the yes and principle. He looked over at the collapsing outhouse, kaboom. The silence was so beautifully awkward. He milked it for all that it was worth because the audience doesn't know at this point if that was intentional or not.
Right.
We have no clue. And instead of breaking character, he's like, well, guess we're not going home. The audience laughs, and we learned later on that was a complete accident. It was a freak accident. That wasn't supposed to happen. And he built it into the storyline, successfully implementing this principle of yes and. And this is where it gets so fun in stand-up and in banter and in improv comedy. When someone introduces a scene, and you can watch this if you watch Whose Line Is It Anyway, one of my favorite shows. When someone introduces a scene, going with it introduces that level of comedy because there can be a lot of humor in the unexpected. So if I'm on stage and my slides fail, how do I yes and? Yeah. How do I say yes and? I'm not trying to lie or, say that I meant for them to die, but if I go with it, then it can either be successful or funny and successful, which I'm going to bring in the funny if I can. So there was a point back in, it was probably 2015. I was teaching a group of people. I used to do a morning power hour, which basically meant I was on stage for an hour. We do this really chill meditation, and then we shift into body movement. And what I liked to do is get the audience to do 100 jumping jacks. I later learned that was a bad idea because there was one man in the audience who suffered a seizure. He was fine, but I didn't do that again. Anyway, so we were doing 100 jumping jacks. Now, one thing, ladies, if you're listening, don't do this. I have had 5 children, okay? And any woman that has born children knows that you're not built like you were before once the after happens. I had 5 children at the time, delivered 5 children. You know where I'm going with this. all over the stage. Anyway, so I had 2 liters of tea right before I did. Yeah, see, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
2 liters of tea, doing 100 jumping jacks. I'm getting into jumping jack 1920 and I'm starting to feel the pressure. And so I stopped the jumping jacks just to walk around the room and motivate. But then the guilt hits me. I'm like, oh, if I'm making my audience do the jumping jacks, I have to do them with them. So about jumping jack 40 and 50, I'm back into it again. And the pressure is no longer building. It is releasing.
Ooh.
And I'm just praying that my jeans are dark enough to hide the flood. It was like Noah and I, we get each other now. Like this flood was unstoppable. It was complete. I'm pretty sure it still smelled like chamomile. I was, oh my gosh, I was mortified, but I had 20 minutes left on stage. What am I going to do? Am I going to say into the microphone, sorry guys, I just peed my pants, I got to go? I just stuck with it. I kept a distance from the audience because I was really afraid about the smell. I was nervous that they would smell it and that would steal my credibility. But that's not even the funniest part. The funniest part is when I got off stage, I called my husband and I was like, don't ask questions, just bring a change of clothes. I was so mortified. I didn't want to tell anyone. So what's the first thing I do? Grab my friend Heather. And I said, Heather, you're not going to believe what happened. You can't tell anyone, but I just peed my pants on stage. And then I go to my next friend, Stacy, you're not going to believe what just happened. You can't tell anyone, but I just peed my pants on stage. And then I grab my friend, Travis, you're not going to believe what just happened. Don't tell anyone, but I just peed my pants on stage. And by then I've told like 30 people, don't tell anyone. And so now this story that I was so mortified by has now become one of my funniest moments because what could have been really, really embarrassing lost all of its embarrassing power because I just owned it and made it funny. And you know what? Stage fright has no power over me anymore because if you can do that, nothing scares you on stage.
Right. I think that's super important. I would be mortified as well in that situation, but I hope I'd be able to turn it around like you did. Gosh, you're making me think of an interview situation I had years ago now where something similar happened to me before the interview. I still got
and when
the
your
job.
Screen goes dark and you just abandon ship.
I got the job, so it's good. So something worked. But yeah, this is really important stuff. You know, I sometimes talk about like the first time I ever got on stage to do open mic, and I think I maybe spoke to you about this before as well, about saying that I just gave myself permission to completely flop. I could bomb, and it was okay. And several people bombed before I went up on stage. I just thought, well, it's not a big deal. Several people have already completely bombed. If I get a laugh, great. If I get no laughs, fine. I'm either going to be like, it's not for me, or I'll come back again and try again. But I took away the stakes. I took away all the sort of, it has to be good, it has to be funny. Once I took all that off of myself, I could relax and have fun with it. The pressure was off. And I just got to go out there and have fun and be playful. And I got laughs. And I do think if I hadn't gone up there with that, if I've been afraid of doing stand-up for such a long time. It was on my bucket list, but I was terrified of it as well, if that makes any sense.
That's how you know it's good. It's there and you're scared of it.
And so as well as my friend kept saying, one of my friends kept saying to me, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And there's an open mic night in English now in the city. And oh man, when are you going to do it? When are you going to? And eventually I was just like, all right, I'm going to do this. I said I'm going to do it. And then I interviewed Judy Carter, who wrote the new Comedy Bible. And that chat inspired me to just go for it and do it. But it was so important that it didn't have to be perfect the first time up. And I think I forgot some of the things that I thought were some of my funniest jokes, but I still got laughs. And so I tried to take that with me pretty much any time I go on stage, try and take the stakes down and just say, it's okay you don't need to be stressed about this. You can just go and have fun. And I think there's some essence in that and what you're saying there, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, do you feel high pressure when you go have a conversation with your best friend? I just got to nail it.
Not usually.
No, I mean, I don't even feel high pressure if I'm bringing up a tough conversation because they're my friend. And I know they've got my back. Now, when you're going in front of an audience, you don't have that reassurance. You don't know if the audience has your back. Now, what you do know is that the audience wants you to do well. They didn't bring their rotten tomatoes with them. In most cases, they want you to do well. So who's going to have your back? It's just what you said, John. It's yourself. I know that after this is over, I'm still going to have a pulse. The chances of me dying are not zero, but they're very, very, very small from stage fright. So odds are we're going to survive this and we're going to be fine. And you know what, John? I take the same approach to high stakes situations that aren't the stage.
Yeah.
And I have to admit this, and my husband knows this, so I'm going to feel okay saying this out loud. When I got divorced, that was a high stakes thing. I had 5 kids at the time, and it was the toughest decision, one of the toughest decisions I have ever made, because it's not just me it's affecting, it's my 5 children. And by the way, I do not recommend being a young single adult, especially in Utah. If there was a Yelp review for this, it'd be like 1 star. Do not recommend. Thumbs down. It was terrible. I hated it. But what I did love was rediscovering who I was. And maybe for the first time discovering who I was. And when I went into my second and final marriage, this was a high stakes thing because I knew it had to be final. I knew I couldn't make the same mistakes that I had made in my first marriage. I knew I couldn't be the same person I was in my first marriage because that would invite the old mistakes to come back in. But this had to be final. And this thought of it is so high stakes and I can't mess up, all of this pressure made dating very awful on top of already being awful. It was just the worst. But when I did what you just said and I let go and said, I'm going to trust myself. I know I have my back. All the pressure was off. All the impersonation was off. All of the masking and this is how it showed up. Now, I don't know about you, but I can win any burping contest I enter. Hands down, no problem. My friends used to tell me it was my mating call. And I thought for a while that that's why I was single. And I remember the first time I went to the gym with my now husband. We hadn't even started dating yet. We went to the gym together. And as we left the gym, I don't know if it was the pre-workout combined with the bench press, but I let out a 10 out of 10. It had the duration. It had the volume. It had the intensity. It was amazing. We rate each other, by the way. And I realized I had let out this huge burp as I'm walking next to this adorable man who I haven't even started dating yet. And after I let it out, there was a moment of, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have done that in front of this man who I want to date. That could be really embarrassing. And it quickly evaporated when he looked at me and he's like, I'd give that a solid 9.5. And I was like, I found my person. It was my mating call. This is epic. So all of that to say, just this release of pressure that you're talking about, it's okay to be yourself. And guess what? Yourself is going to mess up. But do you have enough compassion for yourself to be like, that's okay. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and let's move on.
Yeah. These too many things in life where too many times where we hold ourselves back for fear of what other people are going to think of us. And yet when we own who we are, when we are confident in who we are and we just show up with that, and as you say, let go and be yourself, and some people are going to like it, some people aren't. And that's exactly it. That's how you find your people. That's how you find the right people to be getting up in front of. Not everything can be for everybody. Like perfumes or colognes, it's like can smell great on one person and can smell horrible on someone else's.
It's so true.
And so not everything is for everybody. And that's true with us and our personalities. And I do think it is this trying to be for everybody or trying not to upset anyone or rock the apple cart or just trying to be this image of who we think we're supposed to be instead of just being ourselves that stops us from being able to connect, turns everything into a performance instead of just being on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes from a deep, empty container within us of not liking ourselves very much. That's why we're seeking for it from other people. I want to be likable because I don't like myself. People don't know the end of that sentence.
Right. And there is that whole principle of you can't give other people what you don't have. And this was one of those things that, I had to learn that in relationships. I had to learn that. I think a lot of people are looking for that with the love of their life, but they're looking for it in other places as well, of the validation, the appreciation, someone to get me, someone to fix me, or whatever it is. And you have to be that person for yourself. And it took me years to really get to that and figure that out. But also when I figured it out in relationships, I was also figuring that out on stage as well. I was also figuring that in how I connect to other people. It's like, all right, I am likable because I can like myself. I am lovable because I can love myself. I have that. I figured that out. Now I can have all the other stuff that complements it without needing it, without it having to be there. I'm a whole person without those things as well.
Absolutely. Oh man. And you and I both know what it's like to sit in front of someone who desperately needs it. It's very off-putting. I'm going to use a very strong word that I watched when I watched Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes. Have you seen this series? Oh,
I have.
So good. He walks into the bathroom with this reporter and she's desperately trying to get his attention and get a story with him. And he walks up to her with the most mic drop phrase I've ever heard him say. And he said, just whispered in her ear, he said, "You repel me." And I thought, whoa, oh my gosh. Oh, am I repulsive? Am I repulsive to people? And you know what? I was worried about it then, and now I'm grateful for it. I repel people all the time. There are people that are repulsed by me all the time, and they're not my people, and that's okay. I don't need them to like me. The Queen of England, I don't think she would like me very much. I'm much too improper. That's okay. Well, I guess it doesn't matter anymore, but the King of England, he probably would have the same opinion. That's okay. I'm okay with my people. In fact, I love my people. And you know what? You mentioned earlier a friend of yours who reflected something to you and pushed something, he's like, go try it. You've been talking about it forever. Go try it.
Yeah.
Those are the people that I want to attract. The people that love me for who I am and love me for who I can be. And they nudge me there often. I like to hang around those people. I hope to find more of those people.
Challenge you in the healthy ways.
Yeah. They said, well, you want this. Why aren't you going and getting it? Whoop.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so good to have those people in our lives. And I think if you're the person who's doing that for everyone else and you don't have anyone doing that for you, you need to get into a room where you're not, where there's people who can do that for you. Because I think too many of us, we can get into a service attitude sometimes where we think we have to be the person who's give for everyone else. But
especially as speakers.
Right, especially speakers. But we have to fill our own cup as well. And I think that can be very hard for speakers when we're often working remotely, we're often traveling. There's all times where we're not always spending our time around other people. We have to probably make an extra effort to have those things in our lives to some degree, but they are out there if we're willing to put in the work to find them, and they're completely worth the investment of energy and time to do so.
Well, I think that's an integrity play. How on earth can we get up on stage or on a podcast or run our own event as speakers if we are not students in a different room?
Yeah.
That seems like how dare we? How dare we be so presumptuous as to say, I've arrived and I'm only leading now and I'm not following. No, that's, in fact, if we're in the audience, that's a hallmark, something to watch for. Ask a speaker who their coach is, and speaker who's not threatened will tell you.
Yeah. Do you feel, there's something that I've noticed, and maybe you have as well, that there is less attraction to, maybe less power in the guru these days, in that sort of person that we're talking about, who's like, they've already got it all figured out. They've got all the answers, and they can tell you everything you need. You don't need to go anywhere else at all. Everything is here. There's people who, I think it was very common, like when I first got into personal development kind of events back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
And now I think people are much more keen on having genuine connection, genuine presence on stage. But have you seen that? Have you noticed that yourself?
I think Tony Robbins started the avalanche of the guru when he put out his Netflix special, I'm Not Your Guru.
Right.
Of all of the people in the world to say that, his had the most impact because he is the man, the myth, the legend. He arguably started the life coaching industry as the first, I don't know if he was the first, but definitely the biggest and most well-known life coach. And when he put out that special that said, I'm not your guru, you don't even have to have watched it to have the impact of that message. hit you like a ton of bricks. And this bro thing I was talking about earlier is the antithesis of that. It screams, "I'm your guru. I have arrived. I have all the answers." It's in its worst cases, people are basically saying, "There's no difference between me and God." Hello, I've heard people say that from stage. It is absolutely insane to me, and that the tragedy of it is that some people fall for it. Like, no, you're fallible. You're human, just like the rest of us. And the people that we as speakers, when we get on stage, now I did talk about speaking from scars instead of wounds, but here's what to say. Like, we all have open wounds that we're working on all of the time, but don't lie to us and tell us that they're closed scars. Don't lie to us and say, "I've already healed from this and know exactly what to do," when you haven't. If you're going through stuff, I'm not going to say that's not okay. It is okay. It is okay. And you know what? Alex Hormozy talked about this when he launched with Sam Evans, when he launched this school thing. It's taken the teaching world by storm. He said, there's actually a way to create community when you don't know stuff. You can say, "Hey, listen, I'm learning how to homestead. Who wants to learn with me? Hey, listen, I want to learn how to be funnier on stage. Who wants to learn this with me? Let's all study together. Let's bring in everything that we're all learning together." I'm not lying and saying, "I already know how to do this. Come do it with me." Quickly doing a Google search and posting a YouTube video of which I know nothing about. That's not how that works, right? It's like the 18-year-old life coach. "I'm a life coach and I haven't had enough light to even coach about. Lived with my parents my whole life." No. It's not a shameful thing to be a student, but just admit it. And if you have achieved, a 10 steps further down the path than a lot of people, Viktor Frankl said this, it's our obligation to reach back and help the next person climb up. So if you're still learning, just admit you're still learning, but be willing to teach what you know.
Yeah, I love the lifelong student aspect, philosophy. I think it's an attitude we should keep with us all of the time. And I've seen this in martial arts. I studied...
you read my mind. We just shared a brain cell there for a second.
Cool. But I studied ninjutsu, Japanese martial arts, for a long time. And something I hope to go back to if I can find a club near enough. But I went to Japan to study with the masters in Tokyo. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. And so I got to spend time with the masters there and the grandmaster of the ninjutsu dojo there, who I think is still alive, like not teaching anymore, but in his 90s. He was still teaching then. And this wasn't that long ago. And the whole philosophy there, the whole attitude of, we're much further. I just got my black belt when I was there, which was so exciting.
Wow.
And they were so much further ahead, of course. They'd gone through all the different dans they were and were teaching it. And yet there was so much humility there. There was so much, you still have stuff to teach us as well. We still have stuff to learn. We just know these things and we have experience here, but we are still students. We're still learning. And I love that kind of humility. There was no guru-ness about it, even from the grandmasters, like a lot of respect for him and awareness of his ability and his teaching over the years, but no arrogance, no, look at me, no, I have all the answers. It was very, very gentle, very, I was going to say demure then, but it was just very, very gentle and very philosophical. And it was a wonderful experience. It was an eye-opening experience. I thought that's how I want it to be all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard, and I wish I could remember the source on this. I can't remember if I heard it from stage or if I read it in a book, but the martial arts philosophy, man, I wish I knew not the guru, I almost said the wrong word, the grandmaster who said, "When I die, bury me in a white belt." I don't want to be buried with my black belt with all my black belt rankings. I want you to bury me in a white belt to symbolize that I'm still new at this. Even when I die, I'm still new at this. There's so much to learn. And that white belt mentality, it's humbling, isn't it? Because a white belt, when you go into any dojo, a white belt, for those of you that don't know martial arts, it means that you're the new kid. You haven't ranked up at all. You haven't earned any status. You haven't earned any medals. You haven't beaten anyone up yet. You probably can't defend a sheep, but you have a white belt, but you're there and you're learning. And that white belt advertises that you're new.
Yeah.
And it's another way of saying, I hope to always be the dumbest kid in the room. I do, because there's so much to learn. And you know what's really cool is if you have that same mentality from time to time and you go into rooms and you just sit and listen, and you don't have to be the last one to have the last word, and you don't have to be the speaker on stage. Sometimes the most effective speakers are silent most of the time.
Right.
I just made that up. That goes on a shirt.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, that's right. Link in the comments.
but 100% that there's a humility and a vulnerability to that as well. Whereas I think people do put on this armor of they need to be perfect, they need to be invulnerable, they need to be like so just beyond confident that they're unimpeachable. And I do think there is just a level of which we are very probably need to go over as a society, but we are very easily convinced by somebody's confidence.
Oh, yes.
If somebody says something very confidently, we are more likely to believe them than somebody who maybe is a little questioning about it. But
yeah, well, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Right.
Did we talk about that before? I thought we did.
No, I don't think so.
So the Dunning-Kruger, you're familiar with this term?
I am.
Okay, so for those of you that aren't, I wasn't. The Dunning-Kruger effect was founded by two very German scientists, obviously, and they learned this from deduced. How do you do an effect? You make it up. I don't know. But they observed a man who covered himself in lemon juice and then went to a bank to rob it.
Yeah.
And when they arrested him, they were just like, listen, we caught you. I kind of feel bad for you. I can only imagine that conversation. Like, sweetheart, what's going on? Like, how did you think you were going to get away with it? Well, he said that invisible ink, if you've watched any Nicolas Cage movie, you know that invisible ink is made with lemon juice. So he thought, if invisible ink is made with lemon juice, then if I cover myself in lemon juice, maybe the camera. And Dunning and Kruger looked at this, and I can only imagine those conversations. But I'm like, we've probably seen this more than once. Maybe not with lemon juice, but with other things. I bet there's a trend here. So they do what the brilliant scientists do, and they create this map, and they observe stupid people doing stupid things, ask them why they did it. And it's because exactly what you said. Their confidence was on the y-axis very high, and their experience was on the x-axis very low, just enough to get themselves in trouble. And at the peak of this Dunning-Kruger effect is when you act with peak confidence and so little experience that they literally call it the top of Mount Stupid. This is when we speak so confidently about something we know nothing about, or worse, cover ourselves in lemon juice, literally or proverbially, and do something stupid. And what happens is we get gobsmacked for it. Sometimes it means people get embarrassed, or sometimes it means they go to jail. And then they go to this valley of despair. And the only way to get sustainably out of it is to educate yourself.
Yeah.
And that requires silence, and it requires listening, and it requires experimenting, maybe with, you can have some confidence, but at least some measure of humility. You can have confidence and humility in the same pill, by the way.
Yeah.
And then climb back out. And you will find that the people who have exited and climbed the real mountain of knowledge, and even more so wisdom, which is knowing when to execute that knowledge, do so when they allow their actions to only exhibit themselves when the confidence and the knowledge match. That is the exit strategy.
I do feel like this is one of the influence principles that Cialdini should have covered.
Is that?
It is that case of if there's a fire and someone's confidently saying go this way, and someone who's actually the fire marshal maybe is saying, oh, come follow me. You're going to follow the person who's confident, like, go this way, even if they're leading you into a dead end. That's where we are kind of wired. We can certainly leverage that ourselves, but this is one of the reasons why so many stories or personal experience, kind of anecdotal things, are taken as true or confidently believed because they're delivered with confidence. This is my experience, right? Yeah.
Oh, can I tell you about this time
Please.
that I did that? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was very single and I was like, I need to go out and meet people. There was I don't they do this where you live, but here they have these kind of murder mystery parties.
Yeah.
No actual murder involved. But what they do is they invite all of the guests, you buy a ticket and they feed you dinner. And then they have a bunch of hired actors that act out a scene, and the fun of it is in solving the murder, making the accusations and so forth. And so I went to this event, again, very single, went by myself, dinner for one at a table of 8. And I was very late to the event, probably 20 minutes late. And I was like, oh, I don't even know if they're going to let me in. They did. And so I arrived to my table late. And that was my first tool. And in the back of my head, I was like, oh, okay, I have an advantage here. I don't even know if this thought formulated completely before I started doing it, but I said, I wonder if I can be the red herring tonight. I wonder if I can convince, nobody knows me here. Nobody knows me. They don't know me as a speaker. They don't know me as, I've never been to this crowd before. I wonder if I can convince them to accuse me in this mock murder scene and pretend like I'm involved. And I had to play my cards exceptionally carefully. John, I did it. I don't know how I did, but I got my entire table to duck under the tablecloth. I got my entire table to trade glasses with each other. I got my entire table to put the napkin on the lap of the person next to them just because I went with confidence. And it worked. I was number one suspect that night. I didn't get a date out of it, but I was the number one suspect that night, even so much that the manager of the conference asked if I had been brought in by another drama group. And when I told him I hadn't, he offered me a job. I said no, but it was the most fun I've had on a date by myself ever.
But a great illustration of the power of just being confident in a situation. Yeah. It makes all the difference. It's like, regardless of how someone is dressed or how they look or what their body shape is or anything like that, confidence surpasses all of that. If you have confidence, that's what people notice.
Absolutely. And you can get a long way with it.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse. Yeah, exactly. Like any tool of influence, it can be used for good or bad. This has honestly been such a fun conversation that I don't want it to end, but it has to, unfortunately.
That's okay.
We both have other things we need to do today, but it has been a real joy. I do wonder for you, what if someone wants to find out more about you, because I think undoubtedly you've been so engaging and entertaining on the show. If someone wants to connect with you and maybe even learn from you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I'm all over social media. So if you just look up my name, you can find it there. But I really like to just connect with people personally. I give out my phone number. So I just want you to text me. I want you to say you heard me on John's show. And that way I can tell John that he's having some reach, which is really cool. So just text me. My number is 801. I'm in America. So +1 801 509 5495. Just text me. Say, hey, let's develop a relationship. Let's go out for a virtual coffee. And you can go to my website and download all the stuff that I have there. That's all well and good. But if you want to just hang out and get to know each other, just text me and then let's learn from each other. I want to learn from you and let's hang out.
I love that. And that is an incredible, I don't think anyone has ever given out their phone number on my show in 5 or so years of doing this. So that's amazing. And I think that's a great way to really personalize stuff and get people to connect. So give Marianne a call. You won't regret it. You'll have at very least a fun conversation, I'm sure.
And if I mute myself, it's probably because I'm on the toilet. So
just watch out for those time differences, right? You don't want 3 a.m. calls.
I reserve the right to ignore a 3 a.m. call and get back to you later. I'll just say that much.
Marianne, it has been a real delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming and being my guest and sharing such a wonderful conversation and so many insights and experiences with us today.
It's been my pleasure, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So if you apply just one idea from this episode, connect first and then perform. You've heard it before if you've been tuning into the show. So your next talk gets instantly better when you do this. Ignore it and you are sliding towards status theatre, louder, shinier, emptier, and less bookable. You heard how scars are greater than wounds and how humor speeds learning and why white belt mindset keeps you sharp and credible. Do subscribe to Present Influence and drop a quick review. It helps me to see if this no-ick direction is hitting home, and if you want coaching on building ethical authority and talks that actually land, reach out. Links are in the description and the show notes. In the meantime, have an amazing week. See you next time.